Alright, this is going to be the Libra end closers guide. Going to do this in one take just like the other ones. So, end closers, are they good? They are very good. I think they're probably the best strategy and probably going to be the most effective strategy this coming race because it is a long race and it has a very long last spurt, which means that the natural end closer ending closing speed is going to give you a lot of free speed over front runners, late surgers, pace chasers. Also, it ends on a straight, and straightaway spurt is an end closer skill. It's probably by far the best skill in the game right now in terms of for the CM, and they have access to it, and no other style does. So, are they pretty easy to make? Well, they only require a couple things. They're moderately difficult to make, but it is certainly manageable. It's nothing like Gemini Cup. So you need to hit your stats. Number one, no matter what, we went over this in the original video. I would watch that first if you are wondering why you need to hit these stats. But the standard 1200, 900, 901 is going to be required. You're going to need some gold recoveries. You're going to need straightaway spurt and a mid-race positioning skill. Everything else is technically luxury, although I would say if you start getting good at running runs, go for long S. Long S is going to help you immensely, especially because you're an end closer and the spurt is long. So the distance aptitude actually matters quite a bit because the last spurt speed matters a lot. Your nice to haves are going to be a green stat overcap skill, an additional acceleration skill, early game positioning skills, and race speed skills, and a third gold recovery. Don't worry, we're going to go through each one of those. That's why I'm kind of glossing over it right now. So, overall, stats, they're standard. This is kind of the free to play stats here. 1200 speed is probably the most important thing if you were to go above any of these thresholds. 900 stamina is generally fine. End closers do not get a stamina debuff at all, like pace chasers do. So these are kind of your standard skills for these. If you need justifications for these, see the first video. You need at least 2 gold recovery skills on this one because it's just the stamina requirements require it. If you have 1150 stamina, you can get away with 1, but your main ones are going to be Swinging Maestro, Breath of Fresh Air, and Cooldown. You can get these through these different support cards here, or of course, if you have Rice Shower, you can change the name for Cooldown. A couple Umas, namely Gold Ship and Narita Taishan, have innate ones. Go Home Specialist does work. There is a downhill. Sleeping Island Lion does work. It's a little unreliable because if you're not in the last 3 places, you're not going to proc Sleeping Lion and then she'll die. So it's a little bit finicky, but so is stuff like Unruffled if you go a Guts route. But these 3 on the left are probably the most common and going to be the most reliable gold recovery skills. You need 2 of them. So the next thing you need, straightaway spurt. It is by far the best acceleration skill, and I think it is mandatory because there's no other skill in the game that affects the entirety of the acceleration phase. So the acceleration phase on the final leg, you can see straightaway spurt. This is actually encroaching shadow, so it's just a little bit more emphasized. But it happens right at the beginning, and it has a massive amount of acceleration that leads you through the entirety of the acceleration phase. The other 2, they're not technically as good. You can see there's a little bit less difference between the 3, but Let's Pump Some Iron happens right about in the middle. It can happen anywhere during this time, so it could do anything from 0 to being quite effective. And No Stopping Me happens super late, but of course, because it's a gold skill, has a massive effect to it. But straightaway spurt going to be a lot more effective and honestly probably a little bit easier in terms of skill points to be able to grab. So last thing you need is a mid-race positioning skill. We're finding out that the reason why Gold Ship has kind of been winning those early CMs is because Anchors Away is just a mid-race positioning skill. And it's incredibly important in these long races because we are dumping whip pretty much. So we're keeping it down in the mid-300s to the 400s. And so our Umas are not being able to actually go and manage their position very well. So if you get blocked, it is very, very difficult to recover from. So all these skills on the right, these are good examples of. They're actually the only examples of the mid-race skills for end closers this time. And essentially what you're doing is you're just brute forcing your position with speed. So if you're able to get into the front of your category, in this case end closer, you're not going to get blocked because all the other people are going to be behind you. So it's sort of kind of like the prisoner's dilemma. If everyone has Professor of Curvature and you don't, you're behind them and you start having problems. It's not necessarily the worst thing in the world. Sometimes you can recover, but for consistency's sake, it's just we've found that mid-race positioning skills are kind of important. Notably, I believe the straightaways need to be double circle, otherwise they proc at the very start of the race. I don't exactly know why, but that seems to be what the UMA simulator is saying. But yeah, if you have gold ship, it's already built in. If you have air groove wedding, it's already built in. So get the start of the end closer spots, and you will find you'll have a lot more success. It also lets you help with less pump some iron because you'll be closer to the late surgers, which means you'll be able to hit 6th place a lot earlier. And of course, that's kind of solved the mystery of why Gold Ship was just randomly winning races. So those are all the mandatory stuff. I think long S is required. You can survive without it, but it's effectively 120 speed. So it's the equivalent of having 3 green skills. And with a long spurt being that powerful, having effectively 300 to 400 skill points of value for free is just insane. And also, of course, you can stack it with right-handed and with fall runner, and you just start having a 15 or 1600 effective speed UMA. Green overcaps would be the thing I would most splurge for. Getting those 40 speeds. Most of these races are determined between 1 and 2 lengths, and if you're able to just consistently get 40 speed from doing a fall runner or for doing a right-handed, you're going to end up winning, like increasing your rate by like 5 to 10% for each green skill. 1240 is going to beat 1200 like 2/3 of the time, let's say, if everything else is notwithstanding the same. So you're basically making it so your accelerations have to be less perfect, and therefore your final late spurt speed is higher, so you have a lot more time to just be able to glide past the rest of the UMAs. The same thing for power. Power turns into acceleration, and it's essentially an acceleration skill that is always active. So it's no matter where it is in the acceleration area, it's going to be active. You don't got to worry about it. And so I like taking firm conditions a lot just because it's as if I have a very weak acceleration skill that's turned on at all points in the race. The next thing to look for, acceleration skills that are not straightaway spurt. Let's pump some iron is a good skill, and no stopping me is a good skill as well. They are not as good as spurt this time, but because spurt doesn't always activate perfectly, well, this gives you a secondary way to win the game. So you have, let's say, 2 of them instead of 1 of them. Well, you have 2 chances of rolling the dice instead of 1 chance to roll the dice to get to max speed faster and win the race. Let's pump some iron is equal to spurt if it does proc absolutely perfectly. Unfortunately, it has a lot of variance, and a lot of times it'll proc and give you nothing to a little bit of minor stuff. It does proc less because you have to get into 6th place. Then spurt's wit check, and as well, of course, the timing of it can change based on when you get into 6th place. No stopping me is an absolute uber gamba skill. About 5% of the time, it gives you a massive 8 lengths if it happens right at the exact start, and it does proc. Otherwise, it gives you much less than spurt does. It's to the point where I would almost suggest just getting Nimble Navigator. As much as I love gambling in terms of just in this game getting like the best chance possible, I don't think with the way front runners are having trouble with this CM that you're going to need to beat out angling and scheming that much. And so if you just have as a luxury, having just white Nimble Navigator should be fine because it still gives you 4 lengths on maximum, and then most times it doesn't give you much anyways. And so it's just kind of, if you have the extra skill points, go for it. But I don't think it's as important as it is for this mile race we have right now. Finally, we're getting into a little bit more of the advanced stuff. It turns out that at the start of the race, you have a pace down that happens on end closers because they want to be in the back of the race. But if you have a skill proc, it cancels it out, as people are finding. And that's why you're seeing Rushing Gale being used by so many people in the whale community, because it just cancels out pace down, and it happens almost always. And so essentially your end closer is going to be into the late surger pack, And the way you proc this is you just do any skill that happens in the very early race. You can look at UMA Simulator for them. A good one that's on a lot of them that people are looking for, and I don't know why they're saying it's absolutely required, but it does help a little bit, but it's most certainly is not required, is UMA Stan. And Agnes Digital has it. She can't really go and do long races very well, and Goldship has that as well. But any of these skills will work, and to varying degrees of effect, but they are mega gamba skills because there's just so many things that can go wrong. If you're blocked, it doesn't matter, you're blocked. If your skill doesn't actually proc before the pace down, it doesn't work. If it procs too late in the pace down, you've already slowed down. You're essentially just trying to keep your acceleration high while you're going up to the cruising speed, as I like to call it, for the mid race. But there's just so many things that can go wrong, so this is just really a luxury, and it's kind of a whale thing. It's like this is what sets an end closer apart from like the people who are paying attention like in A finals at this point. Finally, your end race speeds build. This is going to be what makes or breaks the runs for things that are really close to each other. So two end closers that proc no stopping me at the very end, while procking spurt at the very start. This is what's going to make you win. The best end closer race speed late race skill is innate experience, which can be found on the gold ship card, or if you're playing Matekane Futikaru. Inside Scoop is the white version of it because it has a very long duration. It actually receives some carryover acceleration from Let's Pump Some Iron. So you'll get up a large speed boost if you're on the inner rail, and you're going to receive all the acceleration from the acceleration spurt if you have any skill that procs. So you're going to get there really fast, and it's going to last a very long time. It lasts about to the 200 meter mark. Otherwise, almost every UMA in the game has an end race speed skill. So the most commonly known one is Triumphant Pulse and Behold Thine Emperor's Divine Might. But basically, almost every velocity skill in the game happens in the late race. So there's a couple that don't, but any of them on this list, if you look at an UMA that you're running, it probably already has one built in, but they are incredibly luxury. Only do it again if you have enough points to do all the other stuff, and points are going to be hard to come by in this one. Finally, the last thing to consider is, do you want a third gold recovery skill? We are very low wit this time, which means you'll have about a 70 to an 85% chance of your gold recoveries proccing, which means about 1 in every 4 to 5 races, you probably won't proc the second one, and about 1 out of every 8 races, it's just going to kill your UMA on its own without any debuffs or anything. So a third gold recovery makes that chance go all the way up to 98%. So you're just adding consistency. Again, it's incredibly luxury because now you're spending 900 or more skill points just on gold recoveries, and you need to have your mid-race skills and your acceleration skills on lock before you even consider this, to be honest. You can also do what I like to call building a tank, which is not as important on this one, I don't think, because we're not going to see nice nature. But in medium races, I enjoy just making one that's a little bit overstammed, one that's a little greedy, and one that's kind of built to stat, so that you always kind of have that little chance. Like, you always need the one that is underbuilt a little bit, just so that you have put more into speed and power to get through the race when there's no debuffs, and then always the one that's supposed to eat the debuffs in case just a massive amount of nice natures appear for no reason. Okay, so this is a whale goal sheet that even whales probably won't even be able to do because there is like 3,000 skill points required for this. So getting these stats and getting these skills, hypothetically, the best goal sheet possible would have all these different skills. You have your Triumphant Pulse late race, you have your Let's Pump Some Iron, and your No Stopping Me, and your I forget the other one I was trying to get, Straightaway Spurt. You have all those in the You have all those for your acceleral skills. You have double green. You have double stamina skills. You have Uma Stam, and you have Russian Gale to accelerate past in the start race. And then, of course, you have Anchors Away as your mid-race positioning skill with Professor of Curvature. You're not going to get all these. So what I would suggest, the makeable goal sheet example, there's plenty of skills that can slot out, is something like this. This is 10 skills. It's roughly about 15 to 1,700 skill points. Your stats are a little lower. You've hit your distance aptitude. You have Anchors Away for your mid skill, which means you don't really need to do pro curve because it's Golshi. You have Triumph Impulse as a late race skill. You have smaller green skills just because they're nice. You have Let's Pump Some Iron and Straightaway Spurt as your acceleration skills. And then you have a little bit of luxury. You have your End Closer Corners, Single Circle, and Uma Stand, which can proc at the start to give you a chance of just getting a little bonus stuff. But even that's not required. Like, you could just have Uma Stand just because it's built into Gold Chip, and it's kind of easy just to spend 150 points on it. So all these skills are very easily grabbed from cards and just from innate skills that Gold Chip has. So the best overall, the hypothetical best whale Uma to run is Narita Taishan, just because her skills just are so incredible for the CM. She has AAA aptitude, so you don't got to do anything work. And she has the only instance of Encroaching Shadow, which is Straightaway Spurt. So you'll have a 300-point sink to get the best acceleration skill in the game. You can choose to get her just Straightaway Spurt, or you can choose to go for gold and just get the Encroaching Shadow. She also comes with End Closer Straightaways, which is a versatile skill that can either be a gambling skill or a mid-race skill that procs about half the time, right? She has an innate, albeit a unreliable innate recovery, but you can use it as a third recovery or as a gambling second recovery. And she starts with Early Start, which is a mid-race positioning skill that is not modeled in the Uma simulator, but should actually work for some reason. Only problem with her is she only has a 10% speed bonus and the rest is in guts, which means you really, really need to be able... You need to have good enough cards to be able to get her speed to the stat requirements and her stamina to the stat requirements and her power to the stat requirements, because she doesn't have any help really in that case. So, but if you're able to get to the stat requirements, there's literally nothing else you need. She has everything else built into the kit. You just pick the skill points for her. So it's pretty easy. Gold Chip is probably going to be the one most people build. She's included in the game, of course, but she has decently included skills. She has Go Home Specialist, which is an innate recovery. Anchors Away is your mid-race positioning skill, and that's built in. You don't got to spend any points on it. And then she comes with Uma Scan as a luxury pace down break. And technically, she comes with no non-standard distance. It's actually an event in her train that is the second most gambling skill like in the game, because it's playing Go, and if you have her play, it's a 50% chance of getting Slacker and basically gluing your run, and a 50% chance that she gets non-standard distance and a whole bunch of skill points. So if it's late in your race, you might want to try it and just get non-standard distance. That's basically free. She also comes with Pressure, which is a late race speed skill, and a 20% stamina, 10% power bonus, which is incredible because you can start running double power decks, essentially. So you can either run Super Creek Rice Shower, or you can run like Rice Shower and Hishi Amazon or BYE Day. She does struggle with getting speed up to 1200, so you can either help her with Sparks, but generally you want that in stamina if you're running power decks, or you can just run triple speed. Rico also counters her training restriction this time. A lot of people don't like running the Zuma because she restricts your training every once in a while. But this time you just kind of press Rico and pass the turn and go to the next one. Only thing you're looking for, you got to get Straightaway Spurt somehow. Either run Hishi Amazon, get it in a hint or a parent, or just hope that the blue sparks get it. So Gold Chip's pretty easy, probably the easiest one, probably the one I would suggest most. Hishi Amazon is playable. She is more of a mile and medium racer, of course, but she's ABA aptitude long, so she works. She does have a 20% power bonus, which means you kind of want to run 3-2 Rico setups, so just run double stamina setups. And she has okay skills. They're all luxury, though. So she has End Corner Closers, which is your mid-race positioning skill. End Closer Straights, which is an early pace break or a mid-race positioning skill. And her ultimate is a late-race speed skill, but it acts like Homestretch Haste just because of the way the track is this time. So you don't ever really need Homestretch Haste on her because she has Homestretch Haste. Homestretch Haste also is not the greatest skill in the world this CM. The bad, she does not have Straightaway Spurt. She also doesn't have an innate recovery. She has a lot of kit redundancy, so almost all of her skills are basically mid-race positioning skills, and you only need really one or two of those. I mean, more is nice, but you don't really need it. And all her golds, like her Unyielding and Storm and Drong, they're like 350 skill points, and they do like almost nothing. They do something, but like you can get the same thing from just doing End Closer Corners and Straights, because they both are like a third of a length. My auto top gun is very interesting because she is incredibly flexible, and there's an argument to run her in all 4 positions this time. The reason being is she has events. So she's AAB, so that means you need a grandparent end closer spark. So it's a little bit more difficult than just running like one of the innate end closers like Gold Ship. But she does give a 20% stamina on original, and honestly, the better spread, which is 10% speed, 10% stamina, on wetting my auto top gun. So we'll go over it. So her 20% stamina really lets her do 302 recos and 311 recos. It kind of depends how you're feeling and how your sparks are, but I'd say wetting my auto probably wants to do a 311 reco, and everything else notwithstanding, original wants to do a 302 reco. She also has the event where if you run a race if you win a G1 in every single style, you get the acceleration for all 4 styles. So that includes straightaway spurt. And she also has the event that if you're able to pump her wit up to 500, which is a little bit difficult sometimes when you don't run wit cards, you get a 10% skill point discount because you get fast learner pretty effectively. So wetting my auto top gun has very good skills. They kind of are interchangeable. They just kind of give different things. She gets swinging maestro, which is an innate recovery. She gets corner adept, which is a mid-race positioning skill. And you get flowery maneuver, her ultimate, which is a late race speed skill. So those 3 are 3 of the 4 things that you can check out. And she even has some luxury built in. Original, I think, is a little better on the skills. She gets bofa, which is an innate recovery, but it isn't swinging maestro, so your swinging maestro can last as the second one if all else fails, whereas my auto top gun wetting needs to somehow get cooldown. Flashy landing, which is her ultimate, is a late race speed skill, just like flowery maneuver. It's weaker though because flowery maneuver can give you some acceleration, although I don't believe it works in the CM. She also gets no stopping me, which is the other big one, which is an additional acceleration skill. So you just have different luxuries between the 2, and of course the different stat bonuses. There is really nothing wrong with my auto top gun. The only thing that's a little difficult is you kind of have to. You're playing a bunch of side missions, so you're risking your career output by running in the different. Namely, the late surger position is going to be difficult because you're going to have end closer high, and then also you have to buff you're trying to get to 500 wit, which is a little difficult sometimes, and you might need to tinker around with running a wit card and seeing if you can still hit the stamina requirements with her. So she just has some different struggles, but her kit itself has everything you need built into it and some decent stat bonuses, so she is completely playable. Ice and Flash, we're starting to get a lot worse. She's AAC. She's normally a late surger, but she is technically playable with C aptitude. She has a 10% power bonus, so you want to run 3-2 Rico. She has some wit. The bad is pretty much everything else. So her skills don't work. Ledgerbend doesn't really work very well. Homestretch Haste and IBAM doesn't really work. Focus doesn't really work. Or they're just skill point efficient. So having in body and mind is like 300 points to do a really bad Triumphant Pulse, which is 140, right? Her ult also requires no rushing. You're running very low wit in these long races, so you're going to be rushed about 1 out of every 5 times. And your green skills, she has like Hanshin and stuff, so it just doesn't work. None of her green skills work. She doesn't come with straightaway spurt. She doesn't have a mid-race positioning skill. She doesn't have any good stat bonuses and no innate recoveries. So if you want to run her just purely for the shock factor, I'd do so. If she's your Oshi, she's the character you want to play, I'd suggest running her as a late surger. You at least get a couple of things in the kit for it. She's still not the best in late surger, but she is definitely playable in late surger. Special week, kind of the same thing with my auto top gun. She's a little bit worse than my auto top gun. She's AAC, so you require 2 end closer grandparent sparks. The good is Summer Special Week gets 10% speed stamina and 20% stamina for original, just like my auto top gun. So 302 Rico, 311 Rico. Summer Special Week gets her ultimate is a innate recovery built in. And you also get Tail Hill High, or It's On, as a mid-race positioning skill. Not the hardest skill in the world to get, but it's there, and you'll start to get additional skill point reductions for it. and corner depth ramp up are 2 more mid-race positioning skills. So she's just filled with a bunch of mid-race positioning skills. Special Week Original doesn't have as good of a skill set. Shooting Star is a late race speed skill that's actually kind of unreliable. It requires being in the front of the race, which as an end closer is pretty hard to do. So what happens is it procs really late, and it's essentially you're just doing home stretch haste. It's kind of like the pace chaser Rudolph problem, where if you don't pass people, it just becomes home stretch haste, and it's not really great because it doesn't last long enough. Embody and Mime home stretch haste are inefficient late race speed skills right now. Corner depth is a mid race positioning skill. She does get one of those. So Summer Special Week a little better than Base Special Week, but they both have the same problem, which is there's no straightaway spurt. There's no innate recoveries unless you have Summer Special Week, and there's still a little bit of playing around with mid-race skills for that, and the bad late race innate skill options. So Summer Special Week is playable, requires a bit to build around. The original is just better as pace because you get Gormand. So I would just run her as pace chaser, honestly, Special Week, and just try something else. El Condor Pasta is ABC aptitude, so you need two grandparent sparks. She does have 20% speed on original and 15% speed on fantasy, so you can run just like you can like Oguri Cap and Pace Chaser. You can run 2 speed cards and 3 power cards to hit all your stats, or 2-1-2 Rico setups. The bad is pretty much everything else. She has absolutely 0 skills that have any relevance whatsoever. Her ultimate just procs way too late, so it's bad home stretch haste. And Condor's Fury, which is the fantasy version, the acceleration doesn't happen in the acceleration window, so it doesn't work as well. So same thing, no spurt, no innate recoveries, no positioning skills. Like, there's not even a luxury skill in either El Condor Pasta, so I would just run El Condor Pasta as a pace chaser, unfortunately. Some honorable mention, which is basically all the DN ranks. Oguri Cap is just incredibly powerful, this CM in general. She is much better as a late surger. She is much better as a pace chaser, but it is playable. She gets 20% speed, 10% power, and she has Nimble Navigator built in. And her Triumphant Pulse is probably the best late race speed ultimate in the game still. So she is playable in end closer. You're again looking for spurt. You're looking for just 2 innate recoveries, and everything else is kind of built in. So there's 3 things you got to RNG rather than 1 thing. So it's not my favorite. Just run Oguri Cap as a pace chaser or a late surger. King Halo is actually playable. It's kind of funny because this is going to be a character no one's going to see whatsoever. So this is kind of the shock value character. She gets 20% power, so you can hit your stats with a 3-2-1 deck, essentially. So a 3 speed, 2 stamina, and Rico. Call Me King kind of works. If you get in 5th place, it's a late speed skill. And she comes with the best skill in the game, kind of capping here, but best skill in the game, outer post proficiency. It's a green skill. That's really funny to use because it works half the time, every time. And then Nice Nature technically has D end closer works, but her entire kit just doesn't work. So 20% power bonus, same thing as King Halo. But none of her debuffs work because... Sorry, my voice is dying. None of her debuffs work because it's not medium and you're not running your late surger. So her entire skills kit is built around medium races and late surgers, and you're running neither of them. So unfortunately, Nice Nature is purely there for shock factor in the end closer ranks. Everyone else has E or lower. I'm not going to say they're unplayable, but they require you to get double end closer sparks, which means that essentially you're gambling on grandparents, which is almost going to be impossible. But there are some E's that happen. Good luck if you try them. So in conclusion, for end closers, you got to hit your stats. You got to get straightaway spurt. You got to get a mid-race positioning skill, like Professor of Curvature is probably the easiest one to get. Or if you're running Gold Ship, which probably most people are going to the CM, Anchors Away acts as that. And everything else is absolutely luxury. So your additional accelerations are luxury. Your pace down cancels are luxury. But you hit your stats and you're probably fine this CM. So this has been the End Closer Guide. I'm probably going to do Late Surger next, but I hope this wasn't too long or drawn out. And Burb out. Take care. Good luck.